Okay, so the machine main power on, emergency switch on. If the door is open, the machine will not come on. The safety switch prevents the machine from coming on. Okay, so now the machine is back on again. The first thing before we do any setup on the machine, we open the throat. We open the bed, the workspace. Move your pressure arm aside. If you want to set the bite on your forehead, loosen these two bolts, and very important, the two in the front. These two. If you don't loosen them and you adjust the bite, you're going to bend the fence. So on this end, on this indicator, you can now adjust your bite. So let's say we want a 3 millimeter bite. We set it on 3 millimeters. If you change your cutters, you can do finer adjustments on the indicator itself. Tighten and not over tighten, and tighten the two bolts on the front. So if you look at the outfeed side of your fence, that should be in line with your cutting tool. And if you look at the distance between that and your fence, you have about a 3 millimeter gap as we set it in the front. Okay, when you want to bring the head to the 0 position, you have to engage both heads. If you come to the switch panel, we can run the heads to the 0 position if we have space between the two cutters, the two cutter heads, which we don't at the moment. They're right up against each other, which means the limit switch between this head and this head is made, and we haven't made the limit switch on this head yet, so we've got a gap here. So we're going to take the top head, disengage, and we move open the top head. We move the top head away from the limit switch, which is located down here. Can you see it there? Limit switch down there. Now we can move both heads to the left-hand side zero position. You can stand there. It's this button here that if it stops, it's on its zero position. If I move it that the other way, it will also stop against the second head. So that's our zero position. Now we can set our dial here to 0. Just going to run it off the limit switch. So that's our zero position there. If we want to do a 114 timber, we're going to move this up to 114. We're going to set the back at 114. Just come and have a look here. We have a scale with an indicator, a brass indicator on the right hand side. So I'm going to adjust this manually because it's close to. First disengage the two heads so that we only move the one head. So we've got that set up at 114 now. Now we engage the two lead screws again. The only time we're going to work with the lead screws disengaged is when we change the width that we want to cut. So we've got that set up for 114. Now we're at 114. We've got our indicator set on 114. Then we bring our pressure arm in. To push whatever timber we have, because it's flexible, just so that we've got some pressure on the board towards the fence. This here is to take the bite at the bottom of the cutter, to change the bite on the bottom of the cutter. And the indicator is over here. So again, we've got it set at about 3 millimeter. It's important to have the top cutter up when you do adjustments, especially with a fence, because you have a pressure shoe inside here. This one. And if it's too low, the fence catches it and then it bends the fence. Now we can set our thickness. Make sure you don't leave any tools on the machine surface or in the cutter vicinities. So we're going to bring down the head, and we're going to read on the indicator the thickness that we want on the finished product. So if it's 50 timber, you're probably going to take it down to 45 or 48. Probably 45, you're not going to clean up on 48. Yeah. 30 millimeters, so we can go up a little bit. And for fine adjustment, we can use the inch down. That only brings it down 0.5 millimeter at the press. Alright, then we can start the machine. Everything is clear. We start with the first cutter. It will only going to you will only be able to start the second machine after the first motor has gone into delta, and the third and the fourth. The third one, the second one must be in delta before you can start number 3. If you're uncertain about your settings, you can inch forward on the feed. It's got a safety here. If your timber is too thick, it will stop the feed. Make sure it comes back all the way. But you also have a feed jog. But if you switch your feed on, you can start putting your timber through. So after your first piece of timber, you do all your measurements, and if everything is alright, you can carry on. If it's not right, just do fine, switch the machine off and do fine adjustments. And set up your rulers again against your actual sizes. So, switch off. You can hit the emergency button and it will switch everything off. And the feed won't work unless all 4 motors are running. Okay, so once you've used the first section of your blades, in other words your first 140, again you're going to take your, turn on the main emergency switch and bring up the head to about 100 millimeters or so. Okay, that's high enough. Make sure your side cutters are engaged with this knob in, and then you can run it will now run both heads and your fence. Make sure that you move your pressure arm as well. So you can move your heads back to 0 position, and you have now moved 140 millimeters off your original 0 position. Loosen this again and move it 114 millimeters, or whatever setting you've been working on. Again, just fasten your pressure arm. You can bring down your head to your original setting and start sequentially, and you can start running on the second part of your blade, second 140 millimeters, and you just repeat the process until you've used the whole width of the blade.